I'm joined today by Ivan Murphy, Non-Executive Chairman of Harena Resources. Thanks for joining me, Ivan.
Thanks for having me. Good to see you again.
For listeners new to the company, Ivan, could you give us a quick overview of Harena, please?
Yeah, sure. Harena is a main board London Stock Exchange listed rare earth project. We've been listed on the main market since about March this year. Our project is in Madagascar. There's a couple of key things which make it easy to understand. First of all, it is not exploration. We have a massive proven resource of over 600,000 tons of total rare earth oxides, making us one of the largest proven resources in rare earths globally. And we have a ionic clay mineralization. And this is very important, which means we're not really a mining company in that sense. This is a heap leach in situ clay ionization treatment project, which means we're not blowing stuff up basically, or digging huge holes or all of that, or excavating. So the big story around rare earths is, of course, China, and this is important to giving some background on Harena, because the reason the Chinese dominate the rare earth space isn't because they're especially smart or anything like that, or technically more advanced than us in how they deal with rare earths. It's because of their ionization. So they have clays that are ionized. This is much easier for separation, much easier for processing, and this is why they're so dominant in the space. So our project is of the same type, of the same mineralization, mineralized clays in Madagascar. So that's a very short potted position of the fundamentals of the company.
Okay, great. So you announced yesterday that Harena had increased its ownership in the Ampasindava project to 100%, I think. What was the rationale for this?
Well, the rationale is you want to have as much of your project as possible, obviously. So we had 75% of the project. Now we've added the other 25%. So now we have 100% of our project, which, of course, from a value terms is, well, 25% better. And
Hmm.
of course, just allows us to drive forward with our strategy as a whole, as the complete owner, let's say.
Hmm. Okay, in terms of Ampasindava then, what stage is the project actually at now? And what has sort of been spent on the project historically?
Sure. So we've, over the last years, there's been about 4,256, I think is the exact number, of pits dug across the prospect. And that was what allowed us to develop this resource in conjunction with SGS, the global mining consultancy group, who process JORCs and, give you your proven resource numbers. So that's the sort of on the ground work. In addition to that, we have at the same time a feasibility study in process. So we have a pre-feasibility study, which is pretty much ready for submission. Will allow us then to convert our existing license into a mining license, or effectively a production
Hmm.
license. So we're right at that tipping point for any smaller mining company, where it goes from being, a project under exploration, under resource, to now actually going towards production. So we're in that third phase as a mining company. We are now pushing towards production over the next 12 months. So that's what's, I think, so exciting about this company and so different. And it's been a long road. I've been involved in this since 2010. So,
Hmm.
it's been a long time, but now we really are at the cusp of moving into that later stage, push towards production, which is so key.
Yeah. Okay. In terms of Ampasindava then, where do you think this sits in relation to other rare earth projects globally, of which I think there aren't that many? Are there sort of any unique attributes that make the project stand out?
Yeah, I think there are. I mean, the key fundamental unique point about our project is that it's ionized clays. And, that is the fundamental difference. So there's a lot of rush towards trying to provide solutions in the critical metal and rare earth space at the moment,
Hmm.
which we're going to come on to later in our chat. But a lot of that is around projects which are hard rock. And, these are very complex, really tricky to separate, huge costs in terms of extracting your rare earths. The thing about rare earths is they're not super rare, despite their name, but it's super tricky to extract them and
Hmm.
to separate them from rock. Incredibly costly and can be very damaging environmentally. We're lucky to have a free dig rapid remediation project, which means that we can very quickly remediate the ground that we're taking this clay off from the surface. So,
Mm.
that's a huge difference. And of course, what's really important from a commercial point of view is our speed to production, right? So we can get there much, much quicker than hard rock projects. So look, there's a lot of noise in this space. There's going to be winners and losers. Um, I think we're a winner. We are certainly structured to be that. I think also this resource that's proven, so SGS, which is, the globally recognized mining consultancy group who did the resource work for us, they
Mm.
rate this project as a world class in their own words.
Really?
Project that has a real chance to be a part of the solution for the Western world.
Mm. Okay. So in terms of the rare earths market itself, then, I see MP Materials has put restrictions on exports to China, just I think only this week or last week, and it's caused a spike in the rare earth prices, especially the sort of the ND and PR elements. Do you see rare earth pricing sort of continuing on an upward trajectory from here, especially given the political climate?
It'll be very hard to see it not doing that,
Mm.
really, as a function of the political situation that we find ourselves in. So, the US has now a stated policy to go globally and secure alternative rare earth supply and feedstock outside of China. The Chinese are obviously locked in a trade war with the US at the moment. And so that's the
Mm.
massive lever for them is to turn on and off the rare earth pipe, let's say. So, we are caught in that very tense environment around pricing. It's very hard to see that not pushing pricing up. So I think when you mention companies like MP Materials, it's a brilliant example of where we are right now in the rare earth space. So the DoD, or the Department of Defense in the US, has made a direct equity investment into MP Materials
All
of
right.
about $650 million. This was done with JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs just a couple of weeks ago. MP Materials share price is up 400%, I think, this year in the last 12 months. Market cap now $11 billion. It was $3
Right. Yeah.
billion not so long ago. But the reason for that, which I think is really kind of exciting and fascinating about the position we find ourselves in, is that the US government is making a direct investment into a listed company to help them build a refinery and increase their ability to refine rare earths. And that is obviously hugely exciting for a company like ours. Our strategy is to provide from Madagascar feedstock to that type of environment, right? To that type of structure. So
Mm.
to that end, we're already moving, and beginning to create our connectivity to the bigger players in the space.
Yeah, clearly the US and the Western markets in general becoming, as you said, increasingly worried about rare earth supply, and we're seeing the likes of US agencies such as the DFC offering project grants and financing. Harena Resources is an example recently. I gather you've just been over to the US. Did you
Yeah.
get similar vibes?
Oh, yeah. I would say vibe would be a bit of an understatement. There's an overt direct strategy to look at all options around rare earths. So last week I was in New York and I was in Washington, D.C. And certainly in Washington, D.C., it's just, it couldn't have been more clear. So, we had a brilliant reception. I got to meet some really interesting people. The DFC, the DoD, and the US Exim Bank are just the sort of three big names, I guess, governmentally that are now having these
Mm.
mandates to secure these opportunities. But there's even other agencies outside of those who have a need that are all feeding into that same strategy and that same need to address their supply and the mineral security, which is just the same as energy security around oil. But it's so specific here because obviously of the need for storage and the need for magnet rare earths, especially.
Yeah.
So yes, we had some really, really interesting meetings, and we're looking forward to increasing and telling the market more about our US connectivity in the coming weeks.
So you've just raised funds, I believe, of just over 1.2 million. Who got involved in the fundraise since this wasn't a public offering? And what does the roadmap now look like for the remainder of the year and into 2026? Now the company's fully funded.
Yeah, we just did a placing recently for 1.2 million pounds. This was a specific number of shares that we had the authority to place under our existing authorizations because, we're an LSE main board listed company, so we have certain, regulations around that. So we placed about 82 million shares. We were oversubscribed for that at 1.5p. And we were looking for specific US institutions and sort of more institutional investors to come in, and they have done. So we're really, really pleased about that as we build that US connectivity. It's important to have that investor base. And, the investor market is just as excited about the rare earth space in the US as the government is and the government agencies. So that's great to start just to build that connectivity.
Mm.
So that gives us, good capital cover now right into through the next few months and into the early part of next year and will allow us to do some key milestone work. So we have our feasibility study, which is completed, our pre-feasibility study rather. That will be submitted to the government in Madagascar in the coming weeks. That will allow us to convert our license up to being a mining license or effectively a production license. So that's a key part of what we're doing now. We have some money to spend, locally on site, just local ongoing spending on site, which is important, which we can do now with some of that money. We want to significantly increase the profile of the business now, because we are coming out of that, we're not an exploration company, as I said earlier. So, we need to start to build our profile in a slightly different way. And as I already alluded to, I'm going down to Perth with the Minister of Mining from Madagascar next week. We'll be speaking at a conference together and stuff like that. So that's what the money will be kind of apportioned to for now and allowing us to get to those next key milestones around licensing and also about a more defined path towards production and how we're going to fund that production. So yeah, I think that'll probably get us to that point for early next year. We have a lab and a pilot plant we want to put in place. They'll be for the new year, and this money will help us get prepared and move closer to getting those set up.
Okay. So yeah, finally, Ivan, I think you did touch on it just there, but do you see Harena then going into production once the mining license, etc., is in place? Or do you actually see an opportunity to de-risk the project and potentially sell it, or do you see all options on the table?
Well, look, a lot of those options around selling the project or market movements aren't really within our control. If somebody wants to do that, they're going to come to us, and that's fine. We're just focused on moving the company towards production, and that has to be our aim, and it is our aim.
Mm.
A lot of companies in this position are, going to go for the next phase or so, and then it wouldn't be unusual for us to find a partner. And part of my time in the US last week was to start to build that connectivity around the financing and the getting into production, which of course we're going to need some help with. So
Mm.
I think we're dressed for all eventualities and moving towards production is absolutely what we're doing. As I've said already, we want to provide feedstock into what's needed to improve the mineral security, especially in the US, which is kind of one of our, strategic aims is to build a connectivity there to
Yeah.
get this concentrate up there for refining. So to know, continue to move towards production and all that goes with that.
Okay. All right. Well, very interesting. Sounds like there's a lot of news flow on the horizon. Thanks very much for joining me today, Ivan, and look forward to chatting to you in the near future.
Pleasure. Good to see you again, Darren.